This is Bad Movies We Love, part of the Shice Podcast Network.
If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Hello, Bad Movie Lovers. Welcome back to Bad Movies We Love. I am your host, Nick Scheist,
the master of this stupid stuff.
It is You're So Zane month here at Bad Movies We Love, celebrating the films of Billy Zane. So Billy, if you're listening, just know that this is done in love. It was a lot of fun looking back at Billy's first speaking role in Critters in the last episode, and before we get to the new episode, just a bit of housekeeping. If you're anything like me and you love your trash with treasure buried inside, you're in the right place. So before we dive in, do me a solid. If you like what you hear, hit follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode, because we have a long list of movies to get through, and that list just keeps on growing. Leave a rating and a review, especially if you've ever come across one of the movies we're covering here on the show and said, wait, this movie rules, because it helps more weirdos like us find the show. And if you really want to support the show, check out the exclusive bonus episodes on the Resistance members-only tier at badmovieswelove.captivate.fm/support. And for just $5 a month, you get access to all those other shows, including Bimon Sci-Fi Con, Rom-Com-a-thon, Bad Movie Futures, and more. Plus, when you sign up, you get access to the Discord, and I'll send you a sticker pack as a thank you. And whether you have been here since the very beginning, or if you're tuning in for the very first time to listen to this episode, I am happy to have you here all the same. If you are one of the people who are listening to the show for the first time, I think it's worth noting there is a listener survey in the show notes. It's completely anonymous. You can tell me what you think of the show. The show notes also has the phone number for the show, which is 1-805-285-3885. And it also has my email, badmovieswelove@theshice.com. So if you have something that you want to tell me, or maybe there's a movie you want me to cover, or maybe you want to be a guest on the show at some point in the future, all those options are great ways to get in touch with me. Without further delay, it's time to stare down the barrel of another Bad Movie We Love. I did move recently, so a lot of my studio equipment is still in various stages of unboxing, so we went a little bit old school for this one, as I welcome my friend Clayton to the show to anoint Luis Llosa into the two-time Directors Club here at Bad Movies We Love with his 1993 movie that gave Billy Zane a prominent supporting role. We hit the jungles of Colombia with Sniper. Is not only as good as sex, but maybe better.
Yeah, I think for about 15 to 20 minutes, it was a masterpiece.
No, we want to show the bullet going fast, so we're going to put like speed lines behind it.
It kind of went off the rails a little bit, and once you go off the rails, it's hard to get the audience back.
Billy Zane flips out and loses his shit.
Like if I was Berenger's character, I would have kicked his ass a lot quicker.
There's a whole bunch of snipers that are hunting the predator at the same time.
Don't steal my idea, Hollywood.
What the hell did you just do, Sniper? Just wanted to show you that I own that situation.
Bullshit. You fired a spoiler.
You saw him go down. He's dead.
I didn't see shit. I didn't see him hit. For Christ's sake, you gave him a warning shot.
I hit him. I had him in my sights. There was no doubt about it.
You better be right. From now on, one shot, one kill. No exceptions. You understand?
Well, welcome to the show, man. This is the first time you came and did Bad Movies We Love. You hopped on the other show when I was still doing football chat and stuff like that. But, you know, you and I have known each other for 20-something years now, and this show kind of evolved from just the types of conversations that we used to have about movies back in the day. So I feel like it's appropriate to finally get you on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And Yeah, definitely a person I like to discuss movies with.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of bullshitting we used to do on movies is sort of like how we ended up here in the first place with a show like Bad Movies We Love. So this movie in particular that we're going to be talking about, Sniper, yes, we are sort of celebrating Billy Zane month here on the show. So we get to talk about Billy, but we'll also be talking a little bit about some of the other people involved. And oddly enough, of all the movies that we could have chosen to talk about, we choose one that is, I don't want to say it takes place in Colombia because it doesn't, but it is set in Colombia, which I completely forgot about.
Yeah. Even the guy, like they made a reference using the same last name as to some of the cartel people here. Like there's a cartel called Ochoa. So the guy in the movie, his last name is Ochoa. Raul Ochoa.
Yeah, and so for people that don't know, you currently live in Colombia. You've been there for quite some time at this point. And I would ask, like, oh, is there familiar stuff going on? But the movie was filmed in Australia, so it's not like you can point to any kind of landmarks or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I totally, I understand that because it's like, would you really want to shoot in the jungles of Colombia? Like, it can be done, but it's gonna be a challenge.
Yeah, and it just may not be worth the hassle to try and do it, especially when you can go to a much maybe more film friendly locale that's going to give you some good tax cuts to make your movie in Australia, like this one. The director of this film, will do the details here. Luis Llosa also directed Anaconda, so he joins the two-time directors club on the show. So he enters some rarefied air because like Paul Verhoeven's on this list. Daniel Espinosa is on this list as well. There's a few more people that have trickled on and become filmmakers that we celebrate. And I didn't I didn't pick this movie because it was him. And I just recently did Anaconda back in June. And so this is kind of like a quick turnaround also for a director to go from being on the show for the first time in June and then again in August. And I would probably have to look at the rest of Llosa's catalog and see how many movies he would have that may actually fall into this category.
Yeah, I could agree and say that I believe that was the same director because cinematography in Anaconda and Sniper is very similar.
He seems to like the jungle, so I'd be curious to see some other movies of his and see if these movies are also shot in dense brush. But you know, Sniper is a movie that I always sort of remembered, and I think I really liked it a lot when I was like maybe 10 or 11. I like the ideas in it of the solitary nature of the position and the focus on like a different type of warfare. And so I feared maybe what it was going to be like going back to this movie and watching it again as an adult. And I think some of those fears were realized. A lot of the time that doesn't happen when doing the show. A lot of the time I'll watch a movie and I'll be like, oh, it's even better than I remembered it being. It wasn't just a nostalgia thing. And I think this movie has a little bit of both in the sense that before Zane and Berenger just end up in the jungle together on their mission, there's a lot of like really suspect dialogue and acting choices being made. But then once the movie sort of whittles itself down to the core identity of the film, which is this veteran training a rookie and like the power imbalance and sort of the relationship dynamic between the two of them, then I think it becomes a much better movie through that part of it. and then it ends before any other questions get answered. It's like the mission is over, and yet the credits are rolling. They're in the chopper, and we're on our way home.
Yeah, the idea of the movie is it's a great concept. From the trailer to the actors. Like I wanted to see this movie. You got the great name, Sniper, so it's like, okay, you're definitely gonna see some action, but how's it gonna be told? Is it gonna be told through like the lens of a true soldier sniper, or is it gonna be somewhat glorified and exaggerated to appease audience? So, this movie being as old as it is, we saw it in our youth. So maybe we were anticipating maybe a little bit more considering the action stars that we grew up watching. So I agree with you in that aspect that as I got older and I saw the movie again, there were certain parts of it that I really appreciated, and certain parts of it, but that were kind of like uncomfortable, cringe, typical action, simplistic dialogue, right? But all in all, like the plot was pretty good.
Yeah, I enjoy like the core essence of what the film is more so than maybe some of the choices that had to be made because it was a movie in the early 90s and movies of that era were made in a certain way, and some of those things just were like super noticeable. And that does happen a lot when looking back at the 90s. It's like, oh, it feels so 90s, and sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's not such a good thing. And I feel like this kind of movie, if it were made now, would be the kind of movie that goes like straight to digital platforms. You just buy it for $9 off of iTunes or whatever. This is not a movie that makes it to theaters these days. And so it's kind of cool to look back and see that it was successful at the time. But yeah, this was written by Michael Frost Beckner and Crash Leyland, also starring Tom Berenger, the aforementioned Billy Zane, who we are celebrating, and JT Walsh, who like almost always plays a dick of some kind. So good to see him. And then the rest of the cast is a bunch of faces I didn't really recognize. But then again, the majority of the rest of the movie is spent with just two guys in the jungle, and then everybody else is down the scope of a sniper rifle. So you don't need big names to get shot at 1,000 yards. You can just hire people to die in those scenes.
Yeah, it's like even some of the cinematography is like you can almost compare it to movies of that era as well. Like sometimes, like as I'm watching that movie, I think I'm in another movie. Like I thought I was in like a few scenes from Predator, and it's like, no, I'm watching Sniper.
Well, when you're going to talk about jungle action movies, Predator is always going to be near the top of the list. So if you're going to copy any movie, you might as well copy that one. But, even some of the choices with the score in Sniper are very weird. It feels very disjointed for what the movie is. And it's like trying to cook up unnecessary melodrama in the middle of a movie where like you're being hunted in the jungle of a foreign country while also on your own mission, paired with this kid who may be sabotaging you the entire way. Like I think there's already enough tension and drama just inherently in that story without trying to punch up like character drama with music cues that just the music did not work as well as I had hoped for in this. And again, I think that's more of just a product of the times versus this being like very intentional choices to pitch up some like weird jazzy tones in the middle of the Colombian jungle. Like when you mentioned Predator, and so it has that like the drum beat and kind of like the rattlesnake sound, and it would be weird to hear music that takes you out of that place, right? So I feel like the score in this movie was more maybe what's available or trying to be something rather than trying to make you feel like you're in that jungle place.
Yeah, okay. I agree. I admire the people behind the scenes trying to engage the audience. Maybe they went a little too far with it because like the idea of the story is good, but then they make it a little too obvious that they're like catering or narrating to an audience. It's not natural.
Yeah, exactly. And like that part of it sort of takes you out of what is a pretty just tense and engaging story already. And I think not to belittle Sniper, because the core of this movie, like we said, is still good. It's still enjoyable. But I've seen a lot of other sniper movies or wartime movies that I think corrected some of the mistakes from this. But let's go to the tail of the tape and we'll take a look at the scores that got this movie onto Bad Movies We Love in the first place. And it has a IMDb score of 6.1, a Metascore of 45, Rotten Tomatoes score of 38, audience score though of 55, Letterboxd 2.9. Google users love it though. 85% of Google users gave this movie a thumbs up. So it gives us ultimately a Bad Movies We Love total score of 57 out of 100. So just under the wire. 60 is typically where I start to make some tough decisions and cutoffs. So this one is comfortably under that. And so we know that I think it's safe to say that this is at best like a decent movie and not a great one.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. I think there's a little bit of conflict when, like, if it doesn't know if it wants to be an action or be a drama at times. So then it kind of stalemates, and maybe the audience gets a little bored.
Yeah, like there's two competing sort of narratives. Like there's the hunt, which you of course want some dialogue because it's a movie and you can't just have two characters in the jungle like not talking to each other for an hour and a half. But then on top of that, you're layering in the Billy Zane character to the film and everything that his position and his sort of youthful arrogance and his job with, I think he said the NSC, so I guess on National Security Council. So like he really shouldn't be there. And I think what I found probably most interesting rewatching it as a much older person was that despite the movie being named Sniper and these guys are technically snipers, I feel like the central thesis of the movie is about one guy not wanting to be a sniper. Like that's Billy Zane's whole character is that like he just does not want to do this. He doesn't want to kill anybody. He's never killed anybody. That's not what he's interested in. He's just trying to schmooze his way to the top with an easy gig. And he's very Washington versus, you know, Beckett, who is a seasoned sniper and who really kind of has just become only that to a degree. And so I feel like that central core of the film is this push and pull between sort of whose life path is the correct one and who is right given certain circumstances.
And like the conflict is like you could almost give the movie a different name because the conflict between the two starring characters has nothing to do with sniping, really.
Yeah, no, they just both happen to be snipers. And yeah, it really is this conflict of personalities between a guy who is completely detached from war. And I think Berenger's character, Beckett, even makes a comment somewhere in the film specifically about the guys in Washington, like, don't know what's going on this side of the world. They don't know anything about this jungle, and they're not going to even tell you anything that you probably should know because they're not really interested in that. Like, they're interested in the outcome and getting it done. And so you have this one character who's kind of like not quite off the grid, but he definitely does things his way. You know, he's obviously been alone quite a bit in his life, so he's kind of rough around the edges in terms of communication, but his previous partner had been killed, and now he's getting paired with a guy who's inexperienced, who doesn't actually want to be there, who's never killed anybody. So he's like, Billy Zane's character is like a massive liability to this mission. And I'm like, God, this guy really should not be there at all. And the longer he's there, the more of a liability that we see that he is. He's like stumbling around the jungle. He's picking bad locations and getting busted. He's not taking the shot that he's supposed to be taking. And not only that, he's also like misfiring and letting the guy get away, then lying about the chopper shot. You know, of course, that was one that I remembered so much as a kid, and I couldn't even remember if he actually made it or not. But it's funny because that's kind of the nature of that shot in the movie, is that it's this myth. It's this misinterpretation of this thing that happened.
Yeah, this movie, it's almost like it's not sure what it wants to be, because there's like 3 movies going on at one time. And I don't know if it was for length issues, or it just seems like all 3 ideas are good, you know, snipers, you know, conflict between soldiers, and, you know, the actual action. But hard to fit all of that into an hour and 40-minute film if you're not going to really dive into those characters as deep as you need to go. So, like, at times in the movie, I'm totally invested. I'm like, okay, this is good. And then once you kind of get invested into the drama side of it, it turns back to action, and then the dialogue kind of simplifies again. So now you're like, okay, I'm back in an action film. So it's like, it's kind of jumping around a little bit for me.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's it's tonal disconnect between the type of movie that it is when it's its best versus the type of movie it is when it's its worst. And then the type of movie it is when it's like trying to make up the difference between the two. Those are all like very different things. And I feel like the parts where they're sort of like walking through the jungle and it's sort of like older brother, younger brother, or, you know, like father-son relationship and sort of guiding one person, the kid is being a rebellious dick. And so there is like this learning curve, and you want Billy Zane's character to come around to where Beckett is coaching him. Like, you want him to learn the ropes. You want him to be good at this stuff. You want him to not get them killed is the thing. And that part of it's good because like it gives them a chance to actually talk as they're moving through the jungle. You get to just like build in character development that feels very natural, as opposed to, you know, forcing certain conversations at certain times. The way that the traversing of the jungle happens, I think builds a lot of context to what the sniper does, why they do it, and also creates like the specific disconnect between the two characters, in the sense that you have one character very much in the thick of his job and knows what he's doing. You have another guy who's in a suit coming from Washington who doesn't really know what he's doing, but technically has authority on the mission and wants to, you know, control the narrative without actually having earned any right to do so. And I think that's an important piece of the story, because you have a seasoned military operative who's very good at what he does, and a young upstart suit in Washington who's trying to tell him what to do. And so like that creates like a good kind of like natural friction, but also I think gives the movie a little bit more teeth in terms of what it's actually trying to say. Because a movie like this doesn't need to have a message, right? It could just be the hunt, but it goes out of its way to specifically point to like the decision makers in Washington make these decisions very facelessly, and they send somebody to go kill somebody else, and they want to act like they're absolved of having any blood on their hands. But at the end of the day, it's no different. And so I feel like taking the time out to actually put that in the film is probably like a bigger thing than it actually needed to do, especially for the 90s.
And the one thing that I will give it like praise for is I like the fact that they kind of kept it open about who is going to be the enemy. Like at any particular point in the movie, everyone's a villain at some particular moment.
No, that's a good point. And, you have like the villain sniper that's hunting them. You've got the drug cartel bosses. You've got the shitty dudes in Washington. Billy Zane flips out and loses his shit in the jungle. And then all of a sudden it's like he's actually good once he goes crazy. It's like, oh, now you know what you're doing. But let me take a moment here. I'm going to just set the table for the audience. For people who maybe have never seen Sniper, don't know what the hell we're talking about. So after his breakout role in Dead Calm, Billy Zane was cast alongside Tom Berenger under the direction of Luis Llosa, who wanted to bring a harsher realism to on-screen violence. Filming began in August in 1991 in Queensland, Australia, with additional shooting in Panama. Originally delayed from his 1992 schedule, Sniper finally opened January 29th, 1993, debuting at number 2 at the box office in the US and grossing nearly $19 million nationwide. The film later saw home video release on VHS, Laserdisc, and DVD throughout the 1990s, and then, I saw it on cable. So, I'm curious for you, this is probably not a movie that either of us would have gone to see in theaters, but this is a movie that when it was making the rounds on cable, I was like, ooh, Sniper's on again. Let me check that out. So do you remember the first time you saw this?
It was on cable. I didn't see it in the theater. So I saw it on cable and the names grabbed me. Tom Berenger, good actor, Billy Zane, pretty notarized actor as well. So I was like, okay, this looks like it can be good. But it was totally not what I expected.
Yeah, it's not a war movie in the way that a lot of other war movies are. And I think specifically a lot of other war movies happen sort of under the umbrella of a larger conflict that they're already letting us know about, right? Whether it be like, oh, this is a story that's taking place in Desert Storm or Vietnam or World War II or whatever. There is like a larger overarching sort of knowledge of a war that's happening. So it's like, if you're at least a little bit familiar with history, there might be like a couple of things from this conflict that help inform the reasoning or the decisions or some of the themes that are being covered in the movie. But with this, it's almost like Black Ops mercenary work where, okay, so it's 1992 when it's getting initially, or when it was slated to be released. So it's filming in 91, but it's not talking about Desert Storm. It's not really talking about Vietnam. We're ahead of the Iraq War conflict. So this is all taking place sort of in this cloudy gray area of U.S. interventionism overseas, where they're trying to kill a cartel boss to help implement a new regime in the area to just like help further their interests. So it's like a completely different look at warfare, where it's not tanks and planes and bombs and grand scale stuff. It's like one tiny little change in this region is going to hopefully impact other larger changes that the U.S. interests are looking to make happen. And so in that way, I found it to be a much smarter movie in terms of its, we'll say its look at U.S. foreign policy in the early 90s when we weren't at war. But I think I'm still comfortable saying that it's a war movie because like it still kind of is. I think it falls under that umbrella.
Yeah, I would say it does. Maybe a little bit of propaganda as well. And when I say that, I mean like when we see films as, Americans, we're always going to identify with the American side. So, they're literally, behind enemy lines causing chaos. And the movie doesn't really explain to us in the beginning the whole political landscape and why this has to be done. So we don't know if they're really even doing this righteous, right? So, but being Americans, we're going to blindly, follow the lead of the American ideologies in warfare. So we're sitting here and we're watching this. They're literally behind enemy lines doing these things. But if we were to flip the script and someone was doing this behind American lines, what do you think the headline would be? Newspaper?
Yeah, terrorists assassinate pharma company boss or something like that. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. I feel like the movie actually its specific military commentary is a little bit smarter and probably like bigger than this movie is as a whole, because Desert Storm is happening sort of right around this time as well, but they're not specifically talking about it. And when the US was not directly engaged in conflict, there were a lot of specific moments of US intervention overseas with trying to replace a particular figurehead in a regime overseas that would maybe be more favorable to the US. And so to like make an entire movie that kind of like looks at that on a micro scale and looks at it not from the people making the decision to try to replace this person, but looking at it from the ground level of the person who is actually assigned with the assassination. It's a very interesting thing to do. And it feels like that story maybe could be like plucked out and reimagined for a modern stage, because just the awareness of kind of like how the United States behaves internationally has grown quite a lot since the 90s. There's a lot more awareness of what's happening since, internet, social media. There's a lot more global information out there.
I also wonder too now, in modern times, we're in 2025 now. Does the military even use snipers how they once used them? I mean, mostly warfare now is just, drones and information. So I'm even wondering whether Billy Zane or Beckett even exists nowadays.
Yeah, you're right. They're probably like drone pilots, or Beckett is like all he has is sniping. So he's probably still out there somewhere. But a lot of this type of ground warfare has changed a lot. So that's why I think that theme of just like the interventionist policies that send this person to a foreign country to eliminate this one person for this one reason, but they're doing it at the behest of the United States government, versus movies like, say, assassin movies, right? Where the assassin is doing it for a paycheck, and maybe they are being paid by somebody who's getting money from a government to do this thing. With the assassins, it's a lot more just like, yeah, you pay me money, I kill the person you tell me to kill. There's no kind of overarching political commentary that's necessarily connected to those stories. So that's something that I actually appreciated a lot about this movie. It's like, this movie did not have to try to explain any of this, but they took the time to do so.
Okay, I have a question just for you, first time. Okay, so for example, Tom Berenger's character, Billy Zane's character, like more so Tom Berenger's character, because he's the soldier and Billy Zane's more so the suit. How do you feel or think like America in general motivates a soldier with the mindset of a Beckett? Like, how would you keep a guy doing his job? Like, what would motivate him to keep doing that job into his 30s and 40s, working for the government and not necessarily receiving, I don't know, super elaborate paycheck, but just doing it for, I guess, the interests of the United States, or just righteousness, or just goodness? What do you think motivates a soldier to continue to do that type of work?
That's a good question. And it is actually like sort of posed to him in the movie by Billy Zane's character, this notion of like, why do you do this? And we get these flashes of Beckett who talks about like, just do it for the kill, go for the kill. It's the rush. So there seems to be part of him that enjoys what he does, but he also seems like a very, I don't know, honorific person. You know, he, as much as he doesn't necessarily want to listen to Billy Zane when he's challenged for like actual command of the mission, he gives it up. He's very adamant about collecting the dog tags for the fallen soldier, so he wants to make sure that that person is honored for their efforts. So like he's a character that very clearly sort of believes in the value of the service that he does. But as he gets pushed further and further by Zane questioning him, I think we also realize that he doesn't have anything else. Like the place that he thinks he's going back to is gone. And so he's almost holding on to this fantasy of a life that is going to be there for him. But he's also very much addicted to the thing that he's doing, so much to the point where the whole scene at the end of the movie where he's being tortured and he's trying to get Miller to wait for that final shot. He's telling him 1 shot, 2 kills because he wants to die in that moment because his trigger finger has been cut off. So it's like the thing that gives him the fix of his addiction has now been removed, and he almost like doesn't see a life worth living. So he's like, oh yeah, just wait until I'm in position and then shoot us both in the head and put me out of my misery, because like he can't envision a life where he isn't sniping people. And so I think in terms of like answering your question, I don't know that the military, at least given the context of what we see, I don't know that they have to do much motivation. You know, Beckett says like it takes, I forget exactly the quote, but it's about choosing the job. And he's like, no, this job chooses the man, not vice versa. And so like it's when him and Miller are first getting to know each other. And so something about like the solitary nature of it, the hunt, the focus, the perfect shot, the 1 bullet, 1 kill, like all that stuff is stuff that he just is very attracted to as an individual. And so he just sort of like ended up in the position more so than I think the government needs to do anything in order to keep him motivated. I mean, hopefully he's got a pension, but he doesn't seem like he was going to retire unless he was forced to.
So in your opinion, do you think like he fell into sniper work, or from the moment he like joined the military, he kind of already knew what he wanted to do?
Well, I mean, you've seen Jarhead, right? With Jake Gyllenhaal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in that movie, when he sort of is aimless and he kind of doesn't want to be in the military and he's like being very avoidant, and then he goes to the sniper program with Jamie Foxx, and all of a sudden he's like, I was addicted to it. Like the thought of this. And so I think there is something sort of intoxicating. I mean, when I watched Sniper as a kid, I was like, it'd probably be cool to be a sniper. So there is like a level of coolness, I guess, that goes into being the lone wolf in that situation, especially when you think of warfare at that time around the 90s, and Jarhead is also set in Desert Storm. Like we're still like tanks, boots on the ground, soldiers, F-16s. Like this is still sort of a more traditional warfare in the sense that we know it. So he probably didn't like set out to join the military to be a sniper, but when he found it, I could see it being the kind of intoxicating work that for the right personality type becomes addictive.
Okay, I have kind of another question. Okay, so do you think that, for example, like American soldiers or military soldiers, the reason why they want to be soldiers, is it, in your opinion, is it more so because to bring balance to the world, like a righteousness, or make right what's wrong, or is it more of a darker side where they're enjoying their work or they're enjoying their violent work?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a soldier, so I can't really speak on personal experience, but I do think there are a combination of things that are going on because, we saw all the photos that got leaked, I think, during the either Afghanistan or Iraq war, where, the soldiers are like posing on top of like piles of dead bodies. It's like similar to a lot of the stuff that has been shown with Israeli soldiers sort of like making fun of the fact that they've killed a bunch of people. And so I think there's a disconnect that happens there that kind of like has to happen. But also, a lot of people choose military service because of things like the GI Bill and because you're going to get a pension and because maybe you don't have options for college or anything after high school. So there's a lot of people that choose military service for different reasons. There's people that get into it, like people in my family who their parent served in the military, and so they want to follow in their dad's footsteps. So they go ahead and they sign up to appease the parents. And who knows, like what all of these things lead to. I think it's going to depend a lot on circumstance and personality. Because if you put the wrong personality in the wrong type of circumstance, then I think you get like the worst thing that happens. But if it's somebody who joins the military because they believe in the nature of service and they want to serve the country and they believe that, the military is going to be a way to serve the country and to more or less like do the right thing. I think that is probably the right kind of personality in hopefully the right kind of circumstance. And that person probably retires, has a nice pension, doesn't like do anything crazy. I had a friend who joined the Navy and did that. And, he was on patrol in, I think it was Afghanistan. And, he had some hairy moments, but I don't think he ever killed anybody. I don't think he ever had like any of those kind of moments, but he wanted to go in and like do the right thing for the sake of doing good. And, he used a GI Bill to go to law school afterwards, and now he's a lawyer. So I understand, I think, both sides of it. But if you sort of prey on weak people in order to be the foundation of your service enlistment, then you're going to have weak people in those positions. And that's like sort of it's more of like a personnel problem than it necessarily is like a military specific problem. Because you see it like in every walk of life. If you have bad personnel, like the company is just kind of like poor, but like also it's a sort of recruitment thing. Like it's very, very complicated and interesting, but probably for a different show because I'm not a military man.
And so I was always conflicted about that. Like, I considered military service, but I was always conflicted on why would I choose military service because I couldn't really be honest with myself about why or why not I would do that. I thought the better of it not to do it because it was like if you're in that profession, in the profession of military, maybe taking lives, like I just feel like personally for me, like I need to be sure about that. Do I have the ability to take a life or do I not have the ability to take a life? I don't want to be in like a Billy Zane situation where I'm over here putting people in danger because I don't have the stones to do my job.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And I worked with a guy actually who joined the army because like he knew that he kind of had some screws loose and he was like, I'm going to hurt somebody and I want to hurt somebody because of like what's going on in my life. I'm so angry and I don't have an outlet for this. So I might as well join the military because they're going to give me an outlet for that anger. And he went overseas and probably did and saw worse things than I actually heard about from him directly. But like there is that type of person as well. So there's not like a single, I think, methodology that could apply broadly to every single person that joins the military, especially if you look back in history. There was a lot of drafts, so people were drafted in. It wasn't just a choice for them to enlist, and so that's like an entire different part of the equation. But again, yeah, I think it's probably more robust of a topic than we've got ample time to handle here. So I know I kind of sprung it on you maybe a day or two ago when I gave you the outline for this, but did you prepare a synopsis haiku?
No, I didn't. Can you refresh my memory about that? The synopsis haiku?
Well, in the rundown, what I do is I have for my guests, I typically just ask for like, give me a haiku that gives us an overview of the movie. And I always make sure that I write one myself just for situations like this, just in case. So I'm going to do it. And then you can hear mine and you'll know what it is for the future. Okay. Creep in the jungle where your life is your rifle if you do not break. So very vague, very much more like thematic, not much of a synopsis there. But yeah, there's a jungle, there's a rifle, and hopefully you don't lose your shit like Billy does, because as soon as he loses his mind, it's like this is now an entirely sort of different movie, and one that I didn't expect. But I feel like for a month of films where we're really sort of taking a look at Billy Zane's career and his performances, I think The Guy Who Goes Crazy in the Jungle is actually like a really fun performance for him, given that like he has to be kind of arrogant and cocky, and he has to be almost a pencil pusher up until the point where he loses his mind, and now he's like, I'll kill everybody, even my partner. So I think watching him sort of break in that way is actually a good bit of fun for a movie like this.
Yeah, you can you notice that Easter egg they plant too. Like after he has the meeting with the suits, when they're briefing him about the mission, like the guy just like randomly comes out the office and says some stuff to him like, okay, well, if Beckett compromises this mission in any way, you're gonna have to take him out. So it's like they're planting that seed with us, the audience, to like, oh, look, there could be a possibility of they can both be villains as well through the duration of the movie.
Which is even crazier because it's like you're sending a guy who's not a killer into a situation where he would have to maybe kill a guy who's like a very, very good and seasoned killer. You're like, Billy just should not be in that situation at all. And I did read a user review of the film that was talking about sort of the operations of what they were doing. And typically what they do is this GS9 designation. I think probably gunnery sergeant would be my guess, but it's like the equivalent of like sort of like a lieutenant position. And the guy was saying that it's not even that big of a promotion, but they do this thing where they want to fast track somebody. And so they pair them in this situation so that like they get the credit for this mission, and then they get to like shit can the person ahead of them. So my guess is that Washington probably wanted to be done with Beckett's character. And so they were using this as a way to, like you said, with the Easter egg, well, you might have to take him out at the end too. So it seemed like they wanted to get this mission done with the best person that they have, but also be done with that person because he maybe has just been around too long and he knows nothing else. He's maybe knows a little bit too much.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like it reminds me of like the GOAT conversation. They got the new young guy coming in, and then you got the old guy kind of on his last legs, but he's got all the information and knowledge, and you guys are being pinned against each other, even though you guys have the same goal. So it's like, yeah, it's almost like a conquer and divide thing by their higher ups, because if Beckett and Miller are coming from the same place or the same situation, those guys probably would have been like friends. They probably would have been similar in a lot of ways. It's like they almost are putting the opposites together to cause the conflict.
Yeah, I think so. I think that actually is the comment that is being made. It's just the movie is not super heavy on the Washington stuff. It's just they talk about it once they leave, once they're actually in the jungle and they're talking to each other. Beckett obviously has his view of Washington. Billy's like, well, yeah, I want to go home and work at a desk and be important and wear a suit and all that stuff. So I think if you sort of just like read between the lines, it is there that Washington is sort of forcing an unnecessary conflict in this situation, which is why they chose a guy like Miller to be there. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving the movie too much credit, but when we watch movies like this on the show, that's kind of what I try to do. I try to look at all of the angles of the movie and try to like give credit where credit is due. And even if it's something that only I pick up on, then hey, like it helps me like the movie. But we talked a little bit already about why this movie is enjoyable for us, why we still liked it. But if you had to guess as to why some outsider out there, why somebody out in the world calls this a bad movie, what do you think would be the reason that this is labeled a bad movie?
Like if I had to describe it in one word?
Not necessarily one word, but, just like a short concept.
I would say, for lack of a better word, maybe dialogue, a little cheesy.
That's fair. I think cheesy is probably an appropriate label for this movie. As, like I said, when they're not in the jungle and they're having to like have fully fledged conversations, I wrote early in my notes, is this like bad acting or is the movie just bad? I was like, I can't tell. And then I was like, oh, the movie's just bad. I see. And then, yeah, it gets out of that and it's like, okay, the movie's not bad anymore. But it does have moments where, yeah, this isn't great. So what am I supposed to do with all of this extra runtime in the movie that isn't particularly good? So in fairness, I think it is both good and bad. But at this point in the show, we typically go back and look at the trailer for this movie, which is going to be interesting because I heard some rumors about this. And part of it is that there's two different trailers. So I think we're looking at the United States one. And there was another one that an independent company cut for the international version of the film. Before we get to the trailer, it's time for a quick word from our sponsor. You think you've got what it takes to be a sniper? Well, spoiler alert, you don't. That's why the makers of Sniper bring you the future of long-distance marksmanship. It's aim assist AR glasses. Slap these bad boys on and instantly upgrade from rookie with shaky hands to Hollywood headshot hero. Features include auto-highlighting only movie-approved targets, enemy soldiers, jungle outposts, and conveniently placed fuel barrels. Real-time wind correction, because apparently leaves rustling 400 yards away are supposed to matter. Their proprietary plot armor override, which guarantees you'll always land the dramatic kill shot right before the third act break. And yes, for those tricky missions, auto squeeze mode, updated with the latest artificial intelligence. Why risk human error when software can do the whole job? So forget training montages, forget years of experience. With aim assist AR glasses, even you can be a cinematic sharpshooter. No skill, no sweat, all spectacle. And now, back to the show. So, let me hit play on that. And for you?
He's a shadow. He's out there. Somewhere. Waiting.
There's a major coup planned for Election Day in Panama. Ochoa's drug cartel is bankrolling it.
Fighting a war
there was a little like political motivation
to
for that.
But a single
About the drug
bullet.
dealer, government intervention.
The This is Alvarez, and that's where you'll find him. Heavily guarded, inside and out.
But this time, he set his sights too high.
National Security Council is sending a guy along to help shoot her. Has he ever been in a jungle?
Billy looks so
Just trust me. Anybody the NSC sends
point.
down here is going to be fully qualified.
And his only backup is a new recruit.
Immediately falls down the mountain.
Do as I tell you to the letter. I think you got a chance.
This music is from a different movie as well.
My contact is dead. We're going where they'll never expect us.
I like that he brought his silver medal into the jungle with him.
Sniper.
One shot, one kill.
Not a bad trailer. I'd probably watch it again, honestly, based on that. But yeah, they're using the Terminator 2 music for that. So you're stealing like an iconic score for an iconic film to help promote your film as an action movie. But I read that the international trailer was cut to be more of a psychological thriller, which I think the movie actually is, and just doesn't. I don't know if like maybe because it's a military movie and it's a mostly U.S. production, that it was not maybe allowed to be framed as a psychological thriller, because like military movies for the most part like do pretty well at the box office. So if you try to turn this into like a psychological movie about the hunt with these two guys, then maybe it doesn't do that well. And it ended up doing decent. You know, it made like 18 million something, almost $19 million. So it was a solid performer. I don't know how much it cost because I couldn't find that number, unfortunately, but it ended up being 77th overall in the US that year. So like not egregiously successful, but successful enough to make a sequel, make several sequels. But it's a movie that even in watching the trailer, I think the trailer sort of like understands one element of it, like the sniper part of it. And we get these scenes in the movie where you see sort of like bullet time is not the right language because that was something that like came from the Matrix, but you get a lot of like bullet special effects where you see like it cutting through the air, which like I get that you want to show the bullet and there's not a ton of action in the movie. And I appreciate the special effects that actually go into showing like the bullet follow camera, right? Because it's not an easy effect to pull off. You want to try to spice things up a little bit. Like the scene where he shoots down the barrel of the scope of the enemy that's watching him. You kind of see the bullet come through the scope and hit him in the eye. So there's some cool effect shots that just tonally maybe don't match with what you'd expect, but I like the initiative to be like, no, we want to show the bullet going fast, so we're going to put like speed lines behind it, and we're going to do a close-up of the bullet so you really see those speed lines. And I kind of forgot, it does look a little odd in that, like, I don't think I've ever seen another movie do that. What a lot of movies do is they do it in the water. So like when you see somebody swimming in the water and you see the zipping of the bullet, so it gives you some sense of like speed and direction. And so like I understand what the movie wanted to do. And the one that comes down the sniper barrel is a really cool shot. The one that they showed in the trailer where the bullet's sort of just like flying through the jungle and we're like following the bullet, that's a cool enough shot. So I appreciate the effort in a lot of that stuff. And that's stuff that whether it's a horror movie, whether it's a war movie, like whatever it is, I'm always going to appreciate like the tactile stuff that gets done to make a movie feel more realistic. And like even in a situation where maybe it doesn't work as well as it could, I will always sort of defer to this was being made with the intent of making this cooler. And at the time in the 90s, I probably thought it was cool the first time I watched it too. I was like, ooh, sniping is cool. Maybe that's a career path, right? Stupid ass. But like, that's the kind of movie this is.
The audience that they targeted on that, because I think they were, they want young guys, they grabbed us right away just from the title. But then because we were young, the movie had that psychological element to it. So it kind of probably turned us off a little bit because we weren't ready to kind of deal with that emotionally just yet. We weren't like mature enough yet. So then now that we're older and we go back and we watch that film, the psychological element probably is the most entertaining part of the movie.
Yeah, it definitely is, because it's well structured in that, like, those two personality types trying to coexist in the same space and work on a mission together is really like the core of the movie. Is like one guy knows how to do it, wants to do it a certain way. The other guy doesn't know how to do it, but is pretty convinced that his way is the right way. And he can't like disconnect between like on the job experience and resume experience. And I experienced that recently in our own job, and that two people got hired because on their resume it was like they're experts at this, and then they come into the job and it's like they don't know what they're doing. So on paper it looks great, but like experience is experience. So seeing that like played out here in a very like dangerous and violent scenario is kind of cool, because it is, at the end of the day, like this is job stuff for them. And it's like, sure, it's not my job, but it is their job and their careers. And looking at it that way, definitely it makes the movie feel so much more adult than the childlike version of myself saw when I first watched it. I was like, oh, this is like kind of not as heady or as smart of a war movie as like an Apocalypse Now or a Full Metal Jacket, or, stuff that actually sort of scales war on such a large level that you maybe understand some of the psychological stuff. Platoon, like all the classic stuff that was really big. And so I didn't really think this movie fell into that category. But then in watching it, I'm like, it's still like a soldier movie, and it is less of a war movie than some of these others. But I think it still has more to say than its lowest moments. I think its smartest moments are still pretty good.
I think the average person can identify with this movie because everybody's been in a situation as far as like on the job or classmates on a project or something like that. So like immediately what I saw when, Berenger and Zane are interacting, like it's like, another superstar coming to your team. Like, how are you going to interact with that superstar? And then who's going to be the alpha? Who's going to be the leader? Like, this is going to be a give and take. And kind of seeing them go through that, like, I saw myself in those particular scenes.
Yeah, and how you respond to the situation is like, are you ready to concede leadership? Like, how does the younger person respond to being coached or trying to learn? Like, and so I think that's how you know that like Billy's kind of a dick, because he shows up and he's like, he's not interested in actually learning any of the things. He's like, no, we're supposed to be a chopper. We're supposed to go this direction. We're supposed to do A, B, and C. What's happening here? Why aren't you listening to me? I don't know what's going on. And so like he feels like he's hot shit because he's technically mission command and he's going to be the guy who's the future. But at the end of the day, he still doesn't know what he's doing at this point. And so like watching him get humbled is an interesting part of the experience. But you want to do a little bit of trivia? I know we're a little bit tight on time, so we don't have to do trivia, because if you didn't study, then it's going to be it's going to be a quick 1, 2, 3 and out. But we can breeze over some of the trivia without making it trivia, and then we'll go to the bonus wheel.
So are these some pretty difficult questions?
Some of them here. We'll do the first one and then we'll see from there. So Billy Zane was cast in the role of Miller after his performance in Dead Calm, but he wasn't actually the first actor who was cast in the role. Do you know who that actor was?
To be cast in Sniper as Billy Zane's character.
Yes.
No, I have no idea. I would just have to guess. I have no idea.
It was Richard Grieco.
Wow, that's interesting. Huh.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting one. I can see why he was put there. But yeah, so I'll go over just we'll do some bonus trivia, but it won't be like the official trivia. So we talk a lot about the sort of personality combinations here, and so we get this moment in the movie where the two of them they're like waiting for something. I forgot exactly, but they're talking about this place in Montana and how Billy Zane went to college there and he knows this small town and he kind of burst the bubble of Beckett's illusion that he's going back to this small town and opening a fish farm or whatever the hell that he was talking about. He's like, no, that's been bulldozed. It's a shopping mall at this point. So in real life, Tom Berenger and Billy Zane are from the same place. They were both born in Chicago. So kind of like a weird happenstance that the two characters share this location, and then the two actors, Berenger born in 49 and Zane in 66, yeah, both from Chicago. And the other trivia question that I was gonna have was how many sequels are there to this film? Because there's a lot.
Yeah, I've seen two, and I think I've seen the majority of three, but I don't know if there was any more after that one.
There was 10 total sequels to this. There was Sniper 2, Sniper 3. I told you, people like sniping. Sniper 2, Sniper 3, Sniper Reloaded, Sniper Legacy, Sniper Ghost Shooter, Sniper Ultimate Kill, Sniper Assassin's End, Sniper Rogue Mission, Sniper Grit, which is an acronym for something I didn't write down. And then finally, this year in 2025, Sniper The Last Stand. And Billy Zane came back, and I think Reloaded is the one that they were both in again. So I might check that one out because they're both back. Berenger did a few. They recast Billy Zane's character and then just continued the story in like the 4 through 7 range of these movies. So kind of crazy that they made that many, because when you look at the movie on paper, and like I said, it's kind of like a straight to video type of movie these days, that they just like continued making sequels is kind of wild based on the property. But the original concept was loosely based on the exploits of an actual Marine Corps sniper, Carlos Hathcock, which is a crazy last name. But he took out a Viet Cong sniper with a bullet through the enemy's eyepiece. And so that was sort of like the legend that this character was crafted around. And, you know, that was a situation where it was like, oh, this is a myth. This didn't really happen. But the spotter who was with him verified the kill, and then they collected the enemy's weapon and they saw that the scope was indeed shot through. And so they gave him credit for that kill. And it's sort of like he became a legend for that reason. But let's see what else. So yeah, when they're on the train, we can see the letters QR on the train, which is for Queensland Railroad in Australia. But obviously this movie takes place in Colombia. That shouldn't have been included in the movie. And we talked that there was another actor in line for the Miller role, but there was actually another director set to direct this movie. And that was Barry Levinson, who directed Rain Man. He did Bugsy, Wag Dog. So he might have actually been a good fit to handle some more of maybe the political commentary that the film actually gets into. But because it's your first time on the show, we're going to go to the bonus wheel no matter what. And we'll do a couple spins here because there's some hypothetical questions that we always want to figure out, you know, what's going on. So we'll see what you get off of the wheel, and it'll give you a chance to speculate a little bit, which is always fun. All right, this is a good one. So if you could be one character in this movie, which character are you going to be?
Do I have to be a human being?
I guess not. What else is in the movie besides human? There's a snake somewhere.
I mean, I kind of see the bullet as a character as well.
Okay. All right, that's fine.
Yeah, if I could be anything, I would probably want to be either the rifle or the bullet. The acting was it was a little subpar, so I didn't really identify with any of the characters. I maybe identified with them for a portion of the movie, but then they kind of went left or they went right, and I was just like, okay, I'm kind of done with that. But okay, I'll continue watching the movie, and then as I continue to watch the movie, the characters weren't the thing that was intriguing me. It was intriguing me was like, where's the director gonna go with?
Yeah, that's interesting. And I mean, we do get sort of like the bullet point of view shots, so I could see that. Well, the next question you kind of already asked of me earlier, but if you could ask a character from the movie a question, who are you going to ask, and what is the question?
That's an interesting question. Who would I ask? I probably ask. Yeah, 'cause I make the reference to Beckett and wanted to know like what motivates you to do this. Like, I mean, if you're doing it for the sake of humanity, or if you're doing it because you're addicted to murder, like, so I probably want to ask him that question, like, why you do this out of a feeling of protecting those that need to be protected, or are you just a violent personality that needs to lash out in an occupational sense?
I think that's a fair question, so I think it's a good one. All right, last question from the wheel. So if you were forced to make a crossover film with this movie, what movie are you going to cross it over with?
Oh, that's a good question. I like that question.
That's a new one.
I mean, because the movie takes place in the jungle, so you know it's going to be, you know, something kind of reference to that. I'm not going to say a particular movie. I'll say a particular franchise. And
Okay.
I mentioned it before. Predator.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Predator versus Sniper.
Yeah, like if you were to implement those two, but okay, so take out the, you know, the psychological element and just have it, you know, Sniper, Predator kind of going at it. I think it could be cool, but don't steal my idea, Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, Miller, Billy Zane's character, would be dead so fast because he's loud, he's stumbling all over the place. He's clearly the weakest link. Predator would take him out, and then it would just be Beckett versus the Predator. And maybe Beckett falls into the mud. He's got his rifle with him. He would have maybe a decent chance, but the Predator's technology is super advanced. Maybe if he can, I don't know, slow him down. It'd be fun to watch because it's like that. The hunter versus hunter aspect of it, I think, is an interesting element.
Yeah, I think for it to work, like the human element would have to already have all the information and know what they're dealing with to make it.
That's a good point.
If it's just like, oh, we're in the jungle and this predator's hunting, that movie's gonna be over.
It's a whole bunch of snipers that are hunting the predator at the same time. Okay.
Like, you see character in Predator 2, like where they're like, oh, okay, we're gonna capture him and we know everything about him, and it went wrong.
They still get cut in half, even though you know everything. Okay. Well, let's go to more or less, though. Very simple, very straightforward. You just tell me one thing you want more of from this movie and one thing that you want less of.
More. Okay. I would have liked to have more screen time in the jungle, but like in the jungle, seeing it more like in the complexity of everything, of the whole region, not just us underneath the trees, because we can't really get a concept of space.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. It's like it could be any unidentifiable jungle. It doesn't feel like Columbia specific.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see, like, you know, give us some eye candy, some waterfalls, some other stuff, so we don't feel like we're in that same little 50-meter parameter, you know?
They're just walking around in a circle in the Australian jungle.
Yeah, it was like, okay, I saw that shot before.
All right, so what's something that you want less of then?
Less of? I would probably want less of the personal issues of Billy Zane's character. Like, I didn't really need that much about him. You showed me that he's inept, you know, within the next 5 minutes. So, like, I don't really need to see much more of that. Now let's move on and let that conflict happen between those two. Like, I felt like Like if I was Berenger's character, I would have kicked his ass a lot quicker just for the stuff that he was doing. Like, dude, like our life's on the line out here. I don't know you, and you're out here falling and stuff. Nah, bro, like you're tripping, literally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I might as well just like what does he say in Predator? He's like, I'll bleed you real quick, leave you here,
Yeah.
right?
Like I've been doing it.
Don't give away our position again.
Yeah, and I come out here with this guy I don't know, and I could literally die just because this fool doesn't know it. No, it's just not. That was a little unrealistic.
That's fair. That's fair. But now we'll head over to Critics Corner, and we will hear all of the probably terrible things that the critics had to say about this movie. It clocks in with a 45 Metascore overall. We start at the bottom, as we always do, with a 25 on the board from the Baltimore Sun. There's nobody attributed to this. It says, it's for those of us for whom killing people with high-powered guns in the movies is not only as good as sex, but maybe better. A sacrament for our age, a poorly written, badly directed film.
But I think maybe like too, okay, for example, the title and all that, like as far as America's concerned, it's a very seductive title. Like if you're an American, how can you not be seduced by Sniper? Like, you almost gotta look at that. And then okay, so you see it and it's like, okay, yeah. I understand how they can mess that up.
Well, let's go to the Los Angeles Times. They gave it a 30 out of 100. This is Michael Wilmington. He says, a movie for people with time to waste. Sniper is about as compelling as a Soldier of Fortune magazine cover set to music. I mean, I'm laughing because I understand these at least. They're pretty mean, but at least that first one was actually very funny.
Yeah, because it's that movie it's almost a combination of like a kids movie and an action movie. So like anybody that's intellectually sound in any of these categories, they're gonna find holes in this film.
Yeah, and that's why it's on this show, because there's some holes, and that's what we do here. So let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 50s on the board. So I'm going to let you pick which outlet you want to hear from. We've got the Austin Chronicle, Time Out, Variety, and Real View.
Go with Real View.
That is James Berardinelli. He's on here quite a bit, but he gave it a 50, so right on the middle. He says, action fans probably won't be offended, provided they're not expecting Berenger to be America's new answer to James Bond. There are occasions when Sniper shows flashes of promise, although most of these are short-lived. The film is capable of providing a 100-minute diversion for anyone who has nothing better to do. The potential is here for something much better, but unfortunately, Sniper shoots itself in the foot. Well, all of these reviews have pointed to the movie sort of being a waste of time, but also like, hey, there's promise there, but it just doesn't quite deliver on its promise. And I think those are the movies that are probably the most fruitful to talk about on the show. It's like when you see potential, I think I'm the kind of person, when I see potential, I kind of just like lean into that. And it's not that I ignore the bad things. It's just that, yeah, I would rather focus on the things that I think the movie does well. I'm not here to like just kick this movie while it's down. Like people already think it sucks. Like I'm sure there's a show about how bad Sniper is, right? There's probably another show right now where they're talking about how much this movie sucks.
I don't think that they think that the movie's bad so much. I think they're more so mad at the movie because like the movie is doing what a typical 90s movie does. But I think that maybe they disillusioned themselves because of the plot and the psychological part of it, that, oh, okay, you're going to take me here, but then you didn't deliver completely with that. So then you also didn't deliver completely with the action. So now I'm mad.
Yeah, a lot of these critics, they come out of these movies and they're like pissed off, and you can tell when they write their review that it's like, I feel personally offended that I had to see that. But we're going to close out closer to the top. We've got a 70 from the Hollywood Reporter, so this person's not too mad. They said, aside from a neat, if somewhat overused optical effect that follows the speeding bullets all along their whizzing aerial tracks, there's nothing here that hasn't been done before. but it's all executed with competence, starting with the performances by Tom Berenger and Billy Zane. So, I mean, if you're going to give it a 7 out of 10 and you're just going to be like, this movie is competent, I feel like that's a gracious 7, but I'll take it at this point.
Okay, and then I'll say one negative thing about it. The movie is entertaining, but like I said, that we didn't really know who the villain was. So, I mean, the typical villain would be the drug dealer that they're there to kill. But we get no information about him. We get nothing about what he's done. So he's not even really a villain. It's almost like they're killing an innocent guy. The only thing we know is he has a lot of money and a lot of soldiers around him. But we haven't seen him do anything. So that's what I'm saying. Like, we never knew who the villain was. It could have been Berenger. It could have been Zane. It could have been the other sniper. Like, it could be the bullet. Like, so it was, maybe that's why the critics were hard on this film, because couldn't really pin down who the villain was.
That's fair. And one critic who was not down on this film was one of probably the most well-renowned critics of all time. It's Roger Ebert from the Chicago Sun-Times. He gave it 3 out of 4 stars. He said, Sniper expresses a cool competence that is a pleasure to watch. It isn't a particularly original film, but what it does well. We've seen so many bad movies about guys walking through the jungle with rifles that it's interesting the way this one grabs us through its command of the locations and its storytelling skills. So I feel like maybe Raj is being a little bit generous with this one as well, but I'm glad that he liked it. You know, at least we have like a established critic giving this a high score. So it's like, we're not alone in liking the movie.
Yeah, I think for about 15 to 20 minutes, it was a masterpiece. And then it kind of went off the rails a little bit. And once you go off the rails, it's hard to get the audience back.
It is. Well, speaking of the audience, one thing that we do here when we close out the show is we give recommendations. So now it is time for the gateway drug movie. So if you're thinking about the audience and maybe they've never seen Sniper before and they're considering push and play on the remote and watching Sniper, what is a good movie that is similar, maybe better, maybe more well known, that they might have seen that would be a good launch pad for Sniper?
Oh, that's kind of a good question. I'd probably compare it to the franchise that I mentioned before, but this particular movie in that franchise is Predators.
The Adrian Brody big cast one? No.
Yeah. You have a sniper element within that movie as well. And you have a villain. The villain is actually doing things in revenge, so that's kind of cool. I guess I would have liked to have seen a little bit more character development in Sniper as far as who that villain is going to be, because it kept kind of jumping. And then at the end, you know, it ends up being a mercenary, an American mercenary or whatever. And it's like, okay, that's fine. It would have made the movie maybe a little bit more entertaining if we knew more about him, stuff that he did.
That's fair. And that's kind of the trouble when you make a movie where all of the bad guys are just on the other end of, you know, a scope. You don't really hear them talk, or you don't know anything about them. I felt like the most interesting villain was the sniper that Berenger had trained. And there's like, it's very interesting for like 2 minutes. And then it's like, oh, he's dead. And he takes off his hood and he looks like some hillbilly. And I'm just like, okay, like you didn't even give this guy time to really pose a credible threat. So granted, it's like he's hunting them and like that. So they're being pursued while they're doing some pursuing. So I like that sort of like triangle that's being built there. And I felt that that's very compelling, but then they eliminate that from the story to just, you know, have a big shootout at the end.
You might have wanted to drag that character out, because that was kind of the most entertaining scene in the movie when they're kind of being hunted.
Yeah, and like Berenger's like, I think it's this guy that I trained from Panama or whatever. So it's like he knows who it is. There's obviously some personal stakes there, but then it's like, nah, there's never going to be a confrontation. I'm just going to shoot him in his face.
yeah. Like, then you go to all the shooting and the compound and all that. It's like, hey, if they would have stuck with that story, would that have been a better movie?
I personally think so, yes. but hindsight's 2020. And so it's because of that when I was thinking of the gateway drug movies of like, what would I actually put here? The one that first came to mind was Enemy at the Gates with Jude Law and Ed Harris, which I think is either like a World War I or World War II sniper movie.
I've never seen.
It's a good one. It's set I think it's either set in Germany or Russia, but it is, I think, a German. I don't remember exactly the details, but I think Ed Harris is either a German or Russian sniper, and Jude Law is probably British, but might also be the Russian in that story. It's been so long, but it's from 2001, so it's like 10 years after that. Let me see. Yeah, Jude Law is a young Russian sharpshooter who becomes a legend when a savvy political officer makes him the hero of his propaganda campaign. Their friendship is threatened when both men fall in love with a beautiful female soldier. And as the battle for the city rages, Vasily, that's Jude Law's character, faces the ultimate challenge when the Nazi command dispatches its most elite sniper to hunt down and kill the man who has become the hope of all Russia. So there's like the myth building, there's the sniper versus sniper action, there's the bigger context of it being a war movie. And I like that one actually quite a bit. And of course, like Jude Law is great. Ed Harris is great. So tough to go wrong there.
Okay, so then I have how do you say, like plan B for a movie besides Predator. I'd probably choose you might find this kind of funny or amusing. I was thinking maybe Nation's Pride.
What is that? Have I seen that?
Yeah, you see Nation's Pride. Nation's Pride is the short film within Inglourious Basterds.
Oh yeah. Friedrich Zoller, yes. So think of that when you're watching Enemy at the Gates, and you'll be like, oh, I see all this is kind of connected here. The only other movie that I really thought of is like a potential wreck based on Sniper was Lone Survivor, Peter Berg's movie with Mark Wahlberg and I think Taylor Kitsch and Ben Foster, where it's like the four of them are trapped behind enemy lines and it's like a very complicated, elaborate shootout. So if what you want out of your war movies is like very visceral, realistic violence, I think that's probably the one to go with. But if you want a sniper movie, I would definitely say Enemy at the Gate.
And it's hard too, because a sniper is like you're only gonna get so much action. They only do so much.
Yeah. If it's one shot, one kill, and you're kind of there for one reason, it's like, yeah, how do you make that engaging? Because that guy kind of just like he's waiting around. The movie can't be Tom Berenger crawling around in a suit made of grass for 90 minutes, right? There's got to be something going on.
And they're usually so far away. They're not even near their target. So is there actually even a movie to be made? Like, okay.
Well, that's why in Jarhead, like most of the movie, like granted he's a sniper, the movie is about like being bored, right? He's like, by the time we get there, the war is already like 7 miles down the road. So it's like, it's about the boredom and the chase of it. So I think there are other movies that explore similar themes of sniping, but yeah, Enemy at the Gates is a good like sniper versus sniper movie. That's a big war movie too. So I'm gonna have to rewatch that one soon, or maybe I just watch one of the 10 sniper sequels. Let's watch the one where Billy Zane comes back in Reloaded, and him and Berenger are back at it again.
Enemy at the Gates. I'm gonna have to check that one. I'm a big war film guy, and I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I think you'll like that one. But I gotta go. This has been a lot of fun. I'm really glad that we could finally figure out a way to actually make it work. But yeah, I'm in a rush. Thank you so much for doing the show. I'm glad that background noise was not like a big issue for me. I'm using a new microphone setup, new headphone setup, so I don't know what it's going to sound like when I listen to the recording. So it could all be very, very different, but we got it done, and that's what.
Well, yeah, thanks for the invitation. I appreciate you letting me be a part of this. Anytime, like you want to have me come back, no problem. I'd like to give input again. Movies are just an amazing reflection of life, humanity, and just experience. And we all see things how we see them. And when we bring our ideas together, sometimes we have a different perspective of what we actually saw when dialoguing with someone else.
Yeah, no, this was a lot of fun to talk about. I even talked about things that I didn't really plan on because obviously we've known each other a long time. It's very easy to have that dialogue just kind of like flow naturally, which is why I wanted to have you on the show in the first place. So I think we should do it again sometime. Maybe I'll let you pick a better movie, but also still a bad movie, and we'll do that one in the future. All right.
Okay, I'm sending salutes from Bogota, Colombia.
Actually from Colombia, not Australia. All right, man. Have yourself a good one.
Okay, have a good one, you as well. See you later, brother.
Later. A big thanks to Clayton for coming on the show. It's probably long overdue considering I've known him longer than basically everybody else who's actually been a guest on this show. And we maybe could have even picked a better movie that we both love even more than a movie like Sniper, and maybe that will happen one day in the future. But for now, I was just really glad to get a chance to sit down and talk to him about a movie that really was a kind of launch pad for Billy Zane in his career. And Clay's not a guy who's big on social media, so you don't even have to worry about finding any of that stuff in the show notes. And of course, thank you to everyone who took the time to listen to the episode. I know there's a seemingly infinite number of options when it comes to podcasts, and I appreciate you letting me into your ear holes and hopefully into your hearts. In all seriousness, though, time is valuable, and I am very grateful that you've entrusted me with yours. If you enjoy the show, please consider leaving a review or at least a rating and telling a friend about it. If you don't enjoy it, then maybe let's keep that between us. As I mentioned in the open, the new members-only section is in fact live at badmoviesweLove.captivate.fm/support, where you're going to get access to a bunch of goodies for only $5 a month. And I would absolutely love to hear from you, so if you have a bad movie you love and would like to be a guest on the show, you can contact me at badmovieswelove@theshice.com or badmovieswelove spelled LUV on Twitter and Instagram. And until next time, take care, be well, stay safe, and have fun however you get your movies. I know you're out there somewhere, Rids. I love you.